Hey everyone, you're listening to the official podcast of 4playernetwork.com. Check us out at that address for everything you need to know about our community, monthly giveaways, and nightly live streams. You can even support us on Patreon at patreon.com/4player. And last but not least, you can catch the live recordings of these podcasts every single Thursday night on our Twitch channel. We hope to see you there. Enjoy.
Just an FYI, before we start, I would just note that James Cameron doesn't do what James Cameron does for James Cameron. James Cameron does what James Cameron does because James Cameron is James Cameron. Just letting you know that.
I think that's a great place to start tonight. We're gonna leave that in. Hey everyone, welcome to 4Player Podcast. This is episode 717. It is April 28th, 2022. I'm your host, Nick Henderson, and I'm joined tonight by Brad Simons.
Hello.
Nolan Hedstrom.
Hey, how's it going, everybody?
And Christopher Davis.
Hello.
We have a lot to talk about tonight. We haven't done a show in about 2 weeks. Last week we did a nice little fun co-op night where we played some Raft together. I think we're going to be talking about some Raft tonight. Among other things, Brad's got some weird little indie games in the dock here. Or maybe they're not little indie games. Maybe I'm selling them short.
Maybe they're not weird either, Nick.
Maybe they're not.
Never heard of them.
Yeah, maybe that's. You know, at first I thought this was like a Stanley Parable joke when I opened the dock, because both of these names seemed odd to me. But we'll talk about them in a second. But before we get to that, guys, how is everybody doing? Anybody seen any movies lately? Anything fun to report before we
I don't think I'm
jump
too
in?
excited to see any more Avatar movies. I think I'm fine the way I am, but I'm also feeling like I'm going to get swept up in the hype because that's sort of par for the course with James Cameron movies. So
I Avatar has a bit of a reputation, obviously, for being like one of those movies that like overpromise, and I don't know, did it overpromise and underdeliver?
I think
maybe it's just
It was the movie was fine, and then it also made more money than any other movie ever. So
Yeah,
Which I'm
so
still
I think it's one
trying
of
to
those things
figure
where I
out.
don't think it necessarily overpromised anything. I don't think anyone ever. I don't think James Cameron and was out there saying like this is the. I mean, don't get me wrong, he probably was saying this is like the best movie ever. But I think it's one of those things where it's like when I heard about it, I was not hearing like oh blah blah blah. I was hearing it was more about the technical side was what everyone was excited about. Not
Which
that
it
this was
impressive.
an amazing movie. This is not like a Citizen Kane or it's not some like masterpiece thing. It's just more about like in this time in 2008 2009 whatever this technical movie like looked so good. That's what people were excited about.
It was a new generation of 3D film, and everyone was interested to see that.
I'm just gonna say real quick on the Avatar note, not that I'm like chomping at the bit to watch more Avatar movies, but I'm not necessarily gonna write them off yet, because he does good sequels. He did Aliens and Terminator 2. Those are some of the best sequels ever made, right? Depending on who you ask.
Yeah, but he didn't create those universes.
That's true. Yeah. That is true.
But you know what? You can also say that he's never done a bad sequel.
Has he? I mean, those aren't the only two sequels he's done, right? Maybe I'm wrong.
I mean, he didn't do Titanic 2, so
that's true. That's true. But
although he did do a sequel documentary about the Titanic,
and it sucked ass.
I'm just saying,
it didn't suck ass. True Lies. Sorry, Nick.
That didn't suck ass.
That's
but all I'm saying is, like, that movie was fine. Like, I don't think there's anything inherently bad about that movie. I'm not sure if I need 4 sequels or whatever. But like, I'm gonna go see this second one, and then I'm gonna make up my mind about how much more of this I want to actually watch.
You want to hear a couple of other fine movies? Fine to maybe not as fine. Fine as in, I bet some people think this is fine, but it's not really doing it for me. I finally watched that new Spider-Man movie, and I finally watched that new Scream movie, and they were okay. And Nick, did you see Everything Everywhere All at Once?
I did see Everything Everywhere All at Once.
What'd you think of that?
You
should watch it.
No, it's very, very good. Very good. I'm still processing it. No.
Where's Crispy?
I adored that movie. But and maybe this is kind of the point. I don't know. But like, what like the message of that movie, kind of like the heart of that movie, like what it's trying to make you feel, is so jumbled to me. And I think it's because it literally is trying to make me feel like so many different emotions while watching that movie, which, everything everywhere all at once. It's kind of how I felt when the movie was over. I was kind of like overwhelmed by like, I don't know how to feel in general right now, because there's just so many competing emotions, so many competing thoughts about it. Undeniably an incredible movie, and also one of the most fun movies I've had, just going in completely blind, and being totally surprised. So yeah, great movie.
I
that I do
haven't
highly
been
recommend.
watching too many movies. I did start the Batman the other day, but I haven't finished it yet. I've been doing a lot of TV. Like I finally got caught up on first half of season 4 of Ozark. It's pretty fucking
Yes.
good. See, the second half comes out on Friday. And then like Better Call Saul, Moon Knight. I've been watching those.
Nice. I am slowly catching up on Better Call Saul. Better Call Saul and Ozark both represent like peak stress for me. And I don't know what it is about Better Call Saul that makes me so uncomfortable. Probably the fact that
He's always doing the wrong thing. Like,
it's a
like,
lot of cringe. Yeah. Which, you know how I am with cringe. Severance, I think we talked about Severance a little bit before on the podcast. That show's fucking incredible. Yeah. I'm watching Mayans MC. I talked about that a little bit on the podcast. It's going pretty well. And what else? Fucking
I feel like that's enough. I have a question for Chris Davis. It seems like he never, anytime we talk about television and film, he never chimes in.
Because he doesn't watch things.
You know what it is? I think it's probably anime. I think it's probably anime, and he doesn't want to tell us.
I mean, I have recently bought a bunch of anime. I haven't watched anime since last year.
Okay. Is this Brad's subtle way of bringing up anime around me again?
Oh, no. You know what, Nick? I don't want to talk to you about it until you watch that other one.
Yeah.
That was part of the plan. The whole experiment doesn't work unless you watch both.
Okay.
So I don't even want to hear about it.
I bookmarked it. I don't remember what it's called.
Oh my god, it's called Paranoia Agent.
There we go. The only way I can watch that's on Funimation's website, right? So
I'm sure it has a little thing to zap it to your TV, probably, right?
Probably.
There are ways
pull it up
to
in the
watch
app
it.
or something. Sure, it has an app.
Anyways, we've been watching
I don't
a lot
watch
of
much TV at all. When I come home, I just either want to play a game or I just want to be kind of away from watching shit. So
see, that's funny because when I get home and if I get home from work and I distinctly don't feel like playing a video game, it is like I just want to lay on a couch and absorb a TV show or a movie or something where I can just kind of zone out and watch something, kind of just enjoy that kind of entertainment passively.
I also like.
Do you live alone, Chris Davis?
I'm sorry.
Do you live alone?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I tend to binge stuff and
you been
wait
into any
it's fully
freaky
out.
porn lately?
Not really, no.
Wait, you had to ask if you lived alone before you. I didn't hear what Chris Davis just said, but I'm going to choose to not ask him to repeat it. And we're just going to move right on past that. Welcome to the show, everybody. We got video games to talk about. Believe it or not, this is a video game podcast. Before we get into that, I want to remind everybody listening at home, we're playing The Darkness double feature for the Revival Club. I made the terrible mistake, I think, this is going to sound bad. I'm not meaning to like throw Carlos under the bus, but I chose Carlos to curate this next Revival Club, completely forgetting about his whole bit. The fact that he doesn't talk in Discord outside of his own channel. And the whole point of the Revival Club is to talk to the people in Discord about the game, but Carlos won't go into the Darkness channel to talk about
this
it.
is
him.
No, Nick, you got to understand how our Discord works, how the Carlos channel works. There's a way you solve the problem. It's the way you solve any problem involving Carlos. Just rename his channel to the Revival Club, and that'll be the Revival Club channel while the Darkness is and he'll talk to you about it.
I talked to him about the darkness a little bit today, but in like a direct message in Discord, so that was great. And like nobody else could see it or benefit from it. It was just us having a conversation.
He nearly broke out of the bit today. We were talking in the meetings channel, and I saw
you could
every
see him
now and then he
typing.
started typing.
Nope, that's a bit too. You think it's not a bit? That's a bit too.
Oh, great!
He does that
his way
when he
of
wants you to
luring
see
other
that he's.
channel-
No, he does that when he wants you to see that he's watching.
Fucking
damn it.
asshole.
I asked him once. He's like, "Dude, this is a weird bit. What would you do if I deleted the channel?" And he was like, "That's it, dog. I guess I'm just done with Discord." And and I'm like, "Well, what about? Is there a way out of this bit? Is there a way out? Like, can we construct a way out?" And he's like, "Dude, I haven't added someone on social media in like 6 years. I'm not giving up on this bit. I don't give up on bits." So. He had a good point. He's gone so many years without adding anyone. So.
I know. It sounds like you're saying adding, but if you're listening at home, what you're atting, he's not mentioning anybody on like Twitter or anything. He like tweets messages to people, at people, but without actually using the @ sign.
Yeah, he subtweets everything.
He'll like talk at me like I should be seeing this conversation, and then I see it like hours later, and I'm like, "What the fuck are you talking about?"
It's a puzzle though, right? Because the only way you're really going to understand what the fuck he's saying is if you literally follow everybody he follows. Because sometimes you're just like, well, who the hell said anything? And I'm kind of looking through like the people in the community that I follow. Sometimes I'll find out who it was, and I'll be like, okay, he was responding to that person. But most of the time it's like, dude, what are you saying? So
this is fucking bizarre. But anyways, point is, we are playing the Darkness 1 and 2. I finished the Darkness 1 sometime early last week. Moved on to the Darkness 2. I streamed it once. Once or twice. I don't remember. I think I've done it once. But I've been playing the Darkness 2 on my Steam Deck. Why don't we start with the Steam Deck tonight? I have a little bit of footage.
Must be nice.
Old news, Nick. Old news. Well, you finally got a Steam Deck.
So far behind the times.
Oh yeah, tell us about your anti-glare coating or whatever. Is that nice?
I played it a little bit in the backyard during daylight hours, and I could see it just fine. I don't know if it's cool. That part's cool, I guess. But I kind of wanted to just talk about the Steam Deck experience in general. I've been playing Supraland 6 inches under primarily. I've played like 7 hours of that, I think, so far, and like 98% of it, 99% of it has been on the Steam Deck. In fact, the only time I've played it on my actual computer has been to record this footage that you are now currently watching. So I'm not necessarily here to say much about Supraland, I guess, because we've talked about Supraland a lot on this podcast. So I will say this: it's still pretty damn good. And
I'll
Brad
definitely say
about...
I don't. Yeah, Brad did. I don't know if it's just because it's been a while since I've been in the world of Supraland.
Mm-hmm.
6 inches under is pretty challenging.
Yeah, I've gotten. I mean, it's definitely. I feel it feels bigger. I think maybe a little bit than original world, and it's more convoluted. Or not convoluted sounds negative. It's like I don't know. I just feel like the level design has gotten better with each.
Well, I think the first one, yeah. I think the first one was a big open world with very tall walls, and eventually you got the ability to kind of traverse those walls, go a little bit higher, and then you were eventually just kind of you weren't limited by it. The second one, or not the second one, but like the follow up to that, got a little more in depth, but this one you're just going to completely new areas, and you're like, I don't want to say you're like kind of going through some linear areas that opened up into big giant areas, and then kind of traversing different
this one has a map
worlds. Yeah,
did the other ones have a map?
No,
I don't think they did. Yeah, I was like, what is this? There's a map? This is weird. Yeah. It's rather small and hard to see on the Steam Deck, but that should speak to the size of the world, I suppose. But yeah, I'm having a lot of fun with Supraland. I want to talk primarily about my experience with the Steam Deck so far. I know Brad's had his for a few weeks now, and I don't know how far, if you've dived much deeper into like playing a bunch of other stuff yet, Brad. I haven't. I've kind of installed like
Yeah. I
6 or
mean,
7
one
things,
of
and I haven't tried them all yet. But
I mean, just game time in general has been somewhat limited for me. The main thing is I've not really been taking my Steam Deck to work because I'm still trying to finish Triangle Strategy, but I have finished. I mean, I have played some smaller games, like the one on the ones I'm talking about tonight, and I think I
Ooh.
mentioned it last time. Maybe I didn't mention it, but I got XCloud running and PS5 Remote Play running, and that required
That's
some
cool.
tinkering and desktop mode and all that stuff. But
I did my first bit of tinkering with desktop mode, which was to solve a relatively simple problem, but I feel like it was a nice exercise to kind of really wrap my head around the machine in general. Like you don't really realize how much of a computer the thing is until you boot it up into desktop mode and you're like navigating the directories and like you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
treating it like a PC. Like on your recommendation, I went and got a wireless mouse keyboard and a adapter, USB-C, USB adapter. So I got those connected. I got one of those little compact ones, but going in there and like, typing away and trying to solve little problems. It does feel unique in that way. And I've n- I'm such a I'm relatively new to playing games on PC, I think compared to most everybody else here. But you had mentioned this kind of was a reminder of like, you know, back in the day, like having to really go the extra mile to get certain things running or
Yeah.
accomplishing certain things on PC. So I'm kind of experiencing that feeling for the first time, while a lot of other people may be kind of just re-experiencing or
Yeah.
discovering that feeling with this device. But it is
Nothing
cool.
too complicated, but if you're familiar with like really tweaking like emulators or really like fucking with mods that aren't, beyond just like
You're
Steam
messing with some
Workshop
like any
stuff.
files and stuff like that.
Yeah.
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 Well, if you're pretty familiar with that sort of thing, even though Steam Deck is Linux based, you could do a lot of this stuff. Really, it's just following a YouTube video or a guide anyway. So
Yeah,
it's
so
not too bad.
I'm enjoying that. I think Drunken Merchant, who I think is getting his Steam Deck, if I remember correctly, today or tomorrow. He had a few questions like, "How's the desktop mode?" We just talked about that. Have you tried Discord integration on the Steam Deck yet? Because I would
No, I
imagine if you
haven't.
install
I
it
don't know
on
if I
desktop
would
mode,
though.
Why not,
yeah,
buddy?
I guess the question would be like for playing something like, because we're going to talk about Raft tonight, and we've been playing co-op, and I'm wondering if you installed Discord on the Steam Deck, can you play on Steam while also communicating
I think you
through
can. I think there's a,
Discord?
there's a
Oh,
way to do that, but like I don't
Mhm.
understand why I wouldn't just like use my phone. You know.
I suppose that's true. I mean,
But then
it's
you have
more just
audio
like
coming from
Instead
two
of
different
having something else,
devices.
instead of having running something else running on my deck, which is a modestly powered device. I
I
don't
do
know
want to talk about battery life a little bit because before
that too.
I eventually locked the frame rate to
Mm.
30, which
Mhm.
circling back around to what Brad had said last week, you kind of mentioned that quick menu you can open up to like quickly tinker with things like that. That is really cool. How you
Yeah.
have such easy, quick access to something like frame rate. So like I was just kind of testing it out just to kind of see like how it affects the actual experience of playing the game, what it does to the projected battery life. And so like when I was running Supraland basically with an unlocked frame rate, it was saying my battery life was max of like an hour and a half. I locked it at 30, and now it's like projected 4.5 to 5 hours running Superland. So it definitely helps.
Mhm.
And since I'm playing on such a small screen, I haven't really, I don't know, the 30 frames per second thing hasn't bothered me much. I don't know if that's if people are just really you know against the idea of playing at 30 frames per second. That used to be all I
Kinda.
know because I used to play everything on console, and that was my reality. So
I mean, if the
it's not
Steam Deck
bothering me.
can run something at like a pretty solid 60, I'm probably not going to switch off of it. But then again, I'm not really taking it places where I need that battery life,
Yeah,
to be really
just
long.
I think
But
it really just it kind of depends on in the situation you're in, how much how much time do you want to be able to play the thing before it dies? And
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, so playing, if you only know you have like an hour or whatever, anyways, might as well just unlock it and then go and then charge it later. But like if you're on like a long trip or something, locking it at 30 can really help take it
Yeah,
that much
for
further,
sure,
which is
for
great.
sure.
It's so easy to do that on the fly, which is
Mhm.
really cool. I know, Brad, you had mentioned you weren't really a fan of the analog sticks all that much.
Oh, just that I find like, the texture on the top I find kind of slippy. I don't know.
Yeah, a little bit.
I'd probably get some. I'm not really playing like, Halo on this thing. I mean I can, but I'd probably get those little like rubbery nubs or whatever you can put on top maybe.
Yeah.
Those usually feel pretty good, but I don't. I think it might have that. I don't know if anything supports it, but I think it has that thing where it can detect if you're touching the sticks or not. Without
Oh
clicking.
yeah, you mentioned that.
Yeah.
I'm not
And I think
entirely
that
sure
might
yet.
be why it feels the way that it does, but
I wonder if putting like the little nub covers on it would actually. I would imagine if it does have that functionality, that would fuck
but
with
what
that.
uses that? What uses
Yeah,
that
I was gonna say
functionality?
it depends on if there's any content that actually makes use of that yet.
No
It's
clue.
just weird. It's how the
Um,
gyro works. Oh,
I don't
like
wait,
if
what?
you activate gyro by
That
huh.
I don't follow that.
I
maybe
don't
maybe
either.
by maybe for gyro to work you have to have your thumbs touching both
Oh,
sticks,
real
and
quick,
if you
if you're
don't,
watching
gyro stops.
footage right now of Superland, I know we're bound. I just kind of this was like one of the coolest fucking things I've done in Superland, and I did it today. Uh, One of the upgrades you get in Superland is for like being able to carry heavy objects, and you actually find like this like guy who's like a trainer, like a physical trainer, and he's like, "All right, you want to be buff, you got to lift weights," and he gives you a weight, and then you have to do like 10 reps of lifting this barbell. And as you're lifting it, this like I'm playing it on Steam Deck, and you can feel every time you go up, it's giving you a little bit more resistance on the sticks. It's like by the time you hit 10, like you're like you can feel like the screen like shaking as you're trying to like lift that last. I was like, that is just such a cool use and of that technology. It was so fucking clever. Oh god, I love this game. Um, Sorry, that was a quick aside. I just 'cause it was on the screen, but yeah, man, I'm really enjoying this device, and I'm also I wasn't really quite sure what to expect as far as like what it was going to feel like to hold this thing in my hands, but like it's to me this thing feels surprisingly sturdy. I think this thing feels sturdier than like say my Switch, and just in terms of like it doesn't feel super fragile. I'm not going to test that theory, but it
Oh, well,
doesn't.
that's because it's all connected. I mean, and you don't have these flimsy little Joy-Cons. Though if you get like a grip or whatever for your Switch, it
Yeah,
feels really solid.
I probably do need to do that at some point. Although wait, the with the grip that you have, can you use that in conjunction with those hoary analog sticks? Or
Oh, oh
is that
no,
just
no,
a
no.
okay?
No, I mean
What
if you're
grip is
if you're
this?
always having that hoary things attached, I mean that is what it is. I mean they don't really make a grip for
Yeah,
that.
I haven't detached those things in forever, so my Switch is
Oh,
bulky, which also was like prepping me for the Steam Deck, because when I finally held the Steam Deck in my hand, it didn't feel massive, because that's just kind of how I've been.
oh yeah, that's true.
The
That
Switch
makes
has felt that
sense.
way forever for me now. Um, but yeah, it's for me, it's been a really great
You
experience. I've
got
been
you got
playing.
you installed Chrono Trigger?
I have
You
Chrono
gonna
Trigger
play
and Final
that?
Fantasy
Good.
VI installed. I have never been
Oh,
closer
nice.
to playing two of the greatest RPGs ever made in my
Yeah,
life.
Well,
I was gonna
that's
say
not
those
true.
are good
You've
ones
been
for
close to
the.
playing this.
No, no,
You
no. I mean,
literally started Chrono Trigger before.
well, yeah, I guess that's kind of right. I forgot I did that on like the DS.
Yeah.
So
That is the definitive version, but hey.
I
Mm-hmm.
know. I'm not gonna bust out my
Um
DS or go
I will
track down
say
a
that
DS copy of
that
that game now.
I will say that Chrono Trigger, when it first came to Steam, it was like trash because it was just like a lame ass mobile port. But it got so much shit talk that Square Enix kind of like improved it themselves, which is shocking. The thing is, with the Final Fantasy VI Pixel Remaster, it still has that ugly ass font. So you might want to go in, and it's not hard.
Audit.
Just look up a guide. just go
No, I
in
mean,
and
I'm
swap out
enjoying
the font file.
I'm enjoying the tinkering, so like that seems like a pretty
Yeah,
simple way to like kind of dabble in mods,
yeah,
modding
for
stuff
sure,
on the
for
device.
sure.
Um, but yeah, I've been really
Also, maybe
enjoying
install
the
like
device.
Dolphin or something. You might have fun like getting
Yeah,
GameCube games or something working on there, or PS2 games.
I definitely, the first little project I gave myself to do with like desktop mode was pretty straightforward, pretty simple. But for someone like me who doesn't have a lot of experience doing that, it took me a little while to kind of nail it
Yeah.
down. But I felt good, like doing the investigative stuff felt good, and then when I pulled it off, I was pretty satisfied. So I definitely want to do more of that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think I'll eventually dabble with mods and emulators and stuff. Um, but I've installed like 6 or 7 things on it so far, and I've played this device every day since I got it. So I think
Hmm.
that says something. I'm not sure, it's nice to be able to work on my backlog on my lunch breaks
Yeah.
because I have so much PC stuff that is compatible. And I think it's worth mentioning too, because Brad had pointed this out, but like, you know, eh, PC games they have the Steam Deck verified, and then they have like the yellow question mark, which says it's playable but may have some issues, and then they have the other one that's basically like we have no idea or it's unsupported. Um, it's worth mentioning that like don't necessarily take that at face value. Like if especially if it has that like yellow question mark on it, install it and try it and give it a go. Like Darkness 2 is running great. I've been playing the Darkness 2 on that device, and it runs beautifully. It plays beautifully. And that's a first person shooter, so I've been really having a good time with that. So
A good number of
you
those
know,
with the yellow question or caution signs are really just like games that launch into a launcher
mhm,
in order to start them, and there's ways to bypass that, and it works just fine.
yeah, except for Final Fantasy 14 apparently,
Yeah,
which I
the
still can't.
Steam version.
The
But
day will come, like the moment that Final Fantasy 14 is officially compatible on the Steam Deck from Steam, I'm going to be in trouble, because that is kind of the excuse that I'm going, like I literally will have no excuse. I'm playing on the device like every
That's what you've
day,
been waiting for.
and maybe it is. I mean, like I, I'm
Yeah, hold
tackling
on,
stuff.
hold on. Like I am by no means a Final Fantasy 14 expert, but I've seen I have some friends that play it. I've seen Crispy. I've seen Brad play it. There's some tiny ass shit on that screen.
yeah, yeah.
How's that gonna work on a fucking
Yeah.
tiny ass Steam Deck?
I'll
I'm gonna
say
make the
this.
font
I
like
think the
super
only
huge.
way that you can make that happen is for you to be like very familiar and comfortable with your UI. Like you have to be
Yeah,
a pretty seasoned 14 player and then move to the Steam Deck so you can process all of the UI
So,
being a lot smaller.
Beck in
But it
chat
is
says UI
customizable. You
scaling,
could
but hold on, UI scaling. But then
you,
all of a sudden, like 4/5 of the screen's gonna be buttons.
it's
yeah.
gonna be like when like older people have cell phones and they have like giant text, like their text
Yeah.
messages are like
Yeah.
massive. It's gonna be like that.
Yeah.
But I mean you're just
Sorry,
looking
older
at your
folks.
cooldown timers anyways, so who cares if you can't see the world or your
But like
character?
I don't know what it is, but like the idea of playing, there's so much stuff in my library that seems so much more appealing and exciting to me
Yeah.
on the
Yeah.
Steam
Dude,
Deck.
just
Dude, Dragon's
so
Dogma.
many. Yeah,
Dragon's
well,
Dogma doesn't
yeah,
run great on a 360, but it runs good on PC.
there you
And
go.
Yeah,
it's
And
I
I
old
just
say
played
enough to run
Dragon's
there's
good on
Dogma
a
for the
Steam Deck.
Revival Club. Otherwise, I'd be all over that. But like, I have a bunch of other stuff lined up, stuff that some stuff that I even started and just kind of got away from, even though I was
another
enjoying it.
curiosity I had doing zero research into it. Itch.io games.
Oh,
My assumption is you could probably get those running on it.
probably. I mean, I think it probably depends on the game, but yeah, I
Well,
would
yeah,
imagine
I know
so.
it's obviously it's going to be a little more complicated than just running it in Steam. But I was just to say, like, this just opens up the library of indie games that one of the things that we've talked about in the past is a lot of the times like, oh, I would play this game if it was on the Switch or blah blah blah, but now all of a sudden you have it portable.
Yeah,
It's so much more access to stuff. We had talked about like Fez a couple weeks ago, and there's
right.
some other really great games that would do really well on a Switch or on a Steam
Yeah.
Deck rather.
I mean,
Just today, Chai Tai recommended a
xCloud.
survival horror game, like an indie survival horror game that just came out. That was that seems very much up my alley. And I looked at it; it was on sale on Steam. Not very much; it was like 10% off or whatever. But so it was like $17. But I was like, this looks like my jam. It's $17. It probably runs on Steam Deck at the very least. I'm willing to try. So I bought it, and I'm just like super excited to try and play stuff. One disappointing piece of news: Honey Pop 2 not compatible with the Steam Deck
At all?
at all. It says unsupported.
Huh.
I mean, maybe I don't know. I would imagine if it has like the hard like the X,
Yeah.
it says says
Yeah.
unsupported. It's not going to run. But strangely
it?
enough, Honey Pop 1 has the yellow question mark. I don't know why Honey Pop 1 would run, but Honey Pop 2
it's the double
doesn't.
date feature on Honey Pop 2 that makes it a little more complicated.
Is that a joke or is
Yeah,
That's a joke.
yellow
Yes,
is
I-
the exclamation point. That means it's been tested, and some features are a little funky. The question mark means they have no fucking clue.
Yeah. Doesn't the Steam Deck have like a touchscreen interface?
It does. I
Mhm.
know because I keep accidentally touching the screen and doing things.
Only when you're playing Honey Pop.
Only when I'm playing Honey Pop, yeah.
But
yeah,
it's weird
anyways,
because his hands are on both analog sticks, so I don't know what's touching
yeah,
the screen.
I don't know what's going on. Who knows? But yeah, this device is really cool. I'm really so far I'm pretty happy with the purchase. I'm excited about the future. The next big release, I think not big release, but the next like potentially high profile PC release for me is Trek to Yomi, which I'm assuming will probably run pretty well on Steam Deck. So
Hey, Rogue Legacy 2 and the new Stanley Parable are probably pretty good.
So what's the
picks
deal
for
with the Stanley Parable? Should I play this updated one without trying the
You
first
should.
one?
No. The original is part of this.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like
But
it's a soft remake with like a bunch of expanded content.
Yeah, but in a Stanley Parable sort of way. So it's the kind of thing where if you like Stanley Parable and you're like, oh, I don't need to play this updated version. No, you probably want to. If you're familiar with Stanley Parable, it's for like the same reason why you also want to play that demo for the original game, Like it's if you know
It's
enough
meta.
about Stanley Parable, you should know that you should probably be playing this new thing. And if you don't know enough about it, just get it because it's the Stanley Parable.
Just dive right in blind.
Well, the irony is they sent us all an email with a code for this, and
Well, they sent our website.
no, I think I got one and Crispy got one.
No,
and
it went to staff.
It went to staff.
So I guess it got forwarded out.
Yeah.
That's probably what happened. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it got forwarded out to all of us, and Crispy redeemed it. So I hope Crispy's playing it and having fun. We'll hear from him on a future show about Stanley Parable Ultra. What is it called?
Ultra Deluxe.
Ultra Deluxe, yeah. But yeah, I probably should play that on the Steam Deck.
They did.
Yeah.
Crows is the developer of Stanley Parable. After they did Stanley Parable and before Ultra Deluxe, they did a very small game called Dr. Langskov. It's like 20 minutes and it's free on Steam and it's fucking great.
That's cool.
Okay. Dr.
That's
Langskov,
cool.
the tiger.
Free is
something or other.
Free is the right price, so I have no excuse to try it. What is Brad showing us on screen? Is this a picture of his son?
Photo of Henry, but it's blurred out.
Like it's blurred.
Yeah.
It's a photo of my son and it's blurred
because
out.
it's a child. His identity is being protected.
Yeah.
Brad's webcam is protecting the child. All right, where do we want to go from here? Maybe let's talk about Raft because we played that on the stream last week. I know we played it. We streamed it, or I've streamed it twice. I know Nolan streamed it once in between.
I've streamed it 3 times.
3 times.
Yes, you have.
So we played a bunch of. Is it still in early access or is it technically?
It
1.0?
is technically still early access.
Okay. Well, we've played quite a bit of this, I think, in the last week. I hope people who tuned in last week enjoyed watching it. It's kind of a chill survival game, but it's pretty good. I had a lot of fun. Wasn't really too concerned with the logistics of the stream. It was just kind of relaxing, sit back, have fun, hang out with your friends, get rocks dropped on our head by birds.
Oh my god, the
That's
bird!
a fact.
I hate that bird.
So what's up?
So
You're
yeah,
the Raft expert here, Nolan.
I mean, I guess so. I've played a little bit more. But this is the footage is from my own. I started up a second world, so whenever we play as a 4-player community, we have our other one, I guess. But this footage is from my own game, and so I kind of took some of the lessons that we learned. We had a pretty rough go of it the first night playing, and I don't think we got a whole lot accomplished.
Having a rough go at it the first night streaming a survival game? No,
Yeah.
nonsense.
Yeah, memories of Valhalla.
Valheim?
I thought Crispy was going to build. Yeah, Valheim. I thought Crispy was going to build his own raft and start going in a different direction.
They announced that Valheim is sold 10 million units.
Damn, wow. Is that a turkey on your boat?
It's a chicken. Yeah, it's a chicken. He lays eggs. His name's Lil Pecker.
Can you actually name him?
Did you? Yeah. And you can get goats that you can milk, and you can get llamas that you can shear their wool, and you can use that wool to make like armor and stuff like that, like clothing. But yeah, so the funny thing was we played that first night and I had so much fun, and I was like, yeah, I want to play more, but obviously I don't want to mess with our world because it's a persistent world. I don't want to build out our raft, and so I was like, let me just kind of start from scratch. And in reality, in about probably an hour and a half, I think I made more progress than the entire night of us streaming.
All over again, man.
Yeah.
It's just because I knew a little bit more about what was going on. I know, a big focus early
we were the
on
guinea pigs, damn it.
Yeah, is collecting shit out of the water, sailing to kind of making a beeline as soon as you see an island, just beeline for it. Collect the stuff you can and then get out.
Two things real quick for people listening. If you're not really familiar with what the game is, you start out on basically a floaty piece of wood in the middle of the ocean, and then as you fish like supply like debris out of the water, and you can build stuff, and you're essentially the entire game is building up your raft until it's like,
I mean, you're on a trash barge. That's what it is, but it's not a barge that collects or moves trash. It is a barge made of trash.
You are constantly being stalked by a single shark.
Yep.
Yes. But the other thing I was going to say was that, let's be honest, Nolan, the reason you made so much progress in this world is also because you didn't have to deal with communication.
Oh
yeah, you are solely focused.
That's something fun to play solo.
So it is. And that's something I kind of talked about when I was streaming this solo, and then a little bit when Nick and myself and Chris Davis streamed it 2 days ago. I think there was the funny thing is this game technically has no limit to the number of people that could be in a world at a time. I don't know
if 4-player cruise ship.
Yeah, you could. I think in theory you could have like 50, 60 people. It's all about the host's computer and internet being able to handle all of that data. But other than that, you could have that many people. I'm sure, of course, there's probably some limit to where it would start slowing down.
Do you think your computer could handle it, Nolan?
I don't know. I think that would just become a cluster. And I realized that because when it was the four of us, the first night we streamed it, there was so little communication, and everyone was we would have like a general idea of like, oh, we need more of this. And then maybe someone would do it, but there was multiple times where it's like, oh, I got downed, and I'm just laying there and no one's helping me. And I'm like, please, someone. And like, no one, but it's just everyone's in their own world, kind of doing their own thing.
I'm like, I'm too busy fishing trash out of the ocean.
I think it's one of those things where you would do better to start a world solo for like an hour and a half, get a little bit of progress, and then have people come in. Just so you're not starting with 4 people on this tiny little thing.
I'm kind of imagining like if we were to do like a community night with like just a bunch of fucking people at once. Mm-hmm. Like I'm thinking like opening a Discord channel and having like 30 people in there, and everyone's just trying to yell over each other like, hey, it's just complete utter chaos. I almost want to do that just for the lulz.
I have a different thought about that. I wonder if it's possible for you to create a second raft. Because can you imagine doing a community night in which we have rival rafts trying to get... No,
you can't. I'll stop you there. Because you can't build it off of anything.
Well, can you... Well... Yeah, I get because if you try and stand next to the edge on your existing boat and try to build out, it's just
You have
going
to
to add
build
on to
onto
your
something, and my
yeah.
assumption is I've not tested this, but I believe if you were to break off a section of your raft, it would just everything would break because it's no longer connected to the main foundation. I don't think you can have multiple.
Would be cool though.
Yeah.
And these are the kinds of things too. Like it still does feel very early access to me. Like because like there's so many things that were like, well, this seems like a no brainer, but like I guess maybe this is just one of those things that like hasn't been incorporated in yet. It also seems
Mhm.
like there's like weather effects and stuff that are there, but like I can imagine they may want to take that a lot further
I'm sure.
than because like there is a storm, quote unquote, that can kind of roll in and make the waters rocky, but like it doesn't go very far with that. I can imagine
Like
they
it doesn't
probably
it
want to
doesn't
like
damage anything. Nothing on your raft gets washed away. It's just there's
yeah.
bigger waves that maybe slow you down. But kind of going back to what we originally were talking about with playing solo versus with people. Um, I think I want to say, like I said, I think it's that initial burst of having so many things to do and trying to have so many people do it was difficult. I think when we picked it up the second time we streamed and there was three of us, it went better. But I honestly don't think it was only because there was three of us. I think it was because there was less to do. We already had an establishment for like water, that purifying water that was more efficient. We already had like a larger grill where we could cook more food. We already had some crops going where we could have that supply. And so there was just kind of less to do. And like I think one of the big things with this game that you might not think about when you first start playing is storage of stuff. Having some, because all of a sudden you start with nothing and you think, oh well, I don't even need, like, I need like one little box, then I'm good. But then all of a sudden out of nowhere, like, you have way too much crap, and now
Right.
it's kind of strewn about in different places. And so I think that's where having too many people and not a good organization system can gonna be difficult. I think later on in the game you do have some ability to put like labels on stuff. But I think that's the difficult thing with multiple people. With solo, it's
That's
like
the
I know
worst,
where
not
my
having to be
planks are. I know where
not
my
being able
palm
to
leaves
label
are.
the boxes, like being able to
Mhm.
like point at something and say, this box is for this is great, but then as soon as like you have to make sure that's communicated or you're just gonna forget when you like just having a labeling system seems like so obvious to me.
Mhm.
So I
So
really hope that's
like I said,
actually
I
in
do
there or
think there are
planned.
labels, and I do know you can paint chests, or like, so
Oh,
that might be easier to be able to say like, oh, let me get something, some color, and I'll paint the chest that I keep leaves in green, and then it's very
yeah,
obvious that that's what that is.
for
But
sure.
we early on, you're very much not focusing on collecting plants and flowers to make dyes, because my
Yeah.
inventory space
Not
is
very
more
important.
crucial, for food in resources. Um, but yeah, so I have in my game, I've done a lot more story than what we've done in our world. And so I've gotten like an engine. If you've seen my footage, I actually have an engine that it's just like a big propeller. So think of like a steamboat. With this, I forget what those are technically called. Um, uh,
No
but yeah, so I
paddles
have a,
necessary.
yeah. But it does take fuel. I have to, right now it's just planks. I think later on you can give a different type of fuel for it, but as of right now, I'm just kind of throwing, planks in there. Um, and the nice thing about that is I now have a steering wheel on my raft and I can change direction. And so the problem with that was, early on you're kind of at the mercy of the wind. And then you start putting out these collection nets, so when that trash comes floating along, it gets picked up in that. But now you're going in a direction and you have this line of collection nets that are like perpendicular to the trash, so like all the trash is kind of just floating past them. And if you had the ability to turn your ship, all of a sudden now with their parallel, you're collecting so much more stuff. And so that's how I kind of set up my ship. Was I had my steering wheel facing that line of collection nets, and so now wherever I point myself, I can just point myself at the trash and then not
You
even have to
tricky
go and pick it
bitch. Look
up.
at that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, so
uh,
I've been doing that, and then like I said, a little more story going on. And I've recently, you're learning about kind of what's happened in this world. I think honestly, to my knowledge, I think that's probably one of the biggest thing this game is lacking. Why it's probably still early access is I do think if you know what you're doing, you can get to the story pretty quick. And obviously, you know, similar to something like Minecraft or something, the story is not necessarily the draw, but it is a component to it.
Yeah.
In
I feel like most survival games these days are kind of less story focused and more on the experience.
Mhm.
If you're looking for a survival game that's like really story heavy, I like to always recommend The Long Dark, because
Mhm.
that game, it's actually split very evenly between like a survival mode and a story mode, but that game goes harder than any other survival game I've played on like telling an actual story with characters and dialogue and stuff. So far, I mean, I don't know, is most of the story in this game kind of told through like notes and stuff that you're finding?
Yeah, so to my knowledge, all of the story is found via those notes. You're essentially, you know, think, you know, Kevin Costner's Waterworld. You know,
Were there
you're
notes in
finding
Waterworld?
probably. The whole point of this is any kind of island you're finding is probably like at the tip of a mountain, and that's the only
Yeah.
reason that it's still there is because it was so high. Um, and as you can see in this footage, is my first time encountering bears. And
Yeah.
so I just pieced out. I was like, no, thank you. I'm not going to fight a
Yeah,
bear.
Elden
A
Ring has made
wild
me very
boar is hard enough.
traumatized by bears.
But
I run the other direction.
but anyway, so you know, you're finding you know, information in the world about kind of what happened, and in this footage even later on, I get to this one island and there's like a ranger station, and I'm finding out a little bit more, and you know, you're trying to set up like relays to send out radio signals so you can kind of find and you know, you hear you know, from one of the first places you go, you hear like a rumor, oh, that there's like a utopia, there's somewhere that still has people, and so you're now trying to find that. um Nose laid, not like, I mean, don't get me wrong, I guess in theory you could drink your own pee like in
Water
water world,
Bros.
but I think I don't think it would be as efficient, just with like the salt content. I mean, that we kind of talked about this the first night we were streaming. The water purifiers that exist in this are based off real things. I mean, it's the whole concept that you put salt water in a container with something over it, in this case like like either like a thick palm leaf or like a piece of grass, and as the sun or fire or whatever heats it up and causes it to evaporate, the water
Moisture.
vapor, you know, collects, yeah, the moisture collects on that thing, and you have it at an angle, and so then it slides down into a catching basin. And so anything that is, you know, not water, so any kind of like salts or minerals or anything that's not pure water, gets left in that basin, and then everything else gets collected. So I mean, it's based off real world. I mean, you can actually do that. So it's kind of interesting that the game allows you to do that, and that's how you get fresh water. Don't get me wrong; it happens in like a minute in the game, whereas it would take, you know, several hours.
Yeah, also
To
trees grow
even.
overnight, so you know,
Oh
whatever.
yeah,
um
they speed things up a little bit.
you know, my
When
favorite
you're
thing about this
playing single,
experience, so oh, go ahead.
What's up?
I was gonna ask, when you're playing single player, the shark is always stalking you. So if you go away from the boat, does it keep attacking the boat, or we come back to
So
something intact?
it always hangs out at the boat, but it will not attack the boat if you are not there.
Okay,
So
good.
if because I think the concept is it's still trying to get you, and so that is why it's attacking the boat. Um,
Right.
so if you like right now, like I've left, I'm on this island, I'm gone. If I were to go to the other side of the island and jump in the water, the shark would be nowhere because he hangs out near the raft.
Okay.
You have to be within X number of like meters of the raft before he'll even like like notice you. And so that's kind of like another trick, is something you can do is, you know, park your raft on one side of the island, and then you're kind of free to explore the waters on the other side to collect, you know, sand and clay and dirt to make you know,
Yeah.
bricks or, you know, metal scrap or whatever. But yeah.
You know, one of my favorite things playing this game co-op the other day was, I thought was so funny, was uh we were trying to create like a system for, you know, purifying water and whatnot, and
Mhm.
I I kept purifying the water, drinking it because I was thirsty, and then forgetting to fill up the cup to put
Mm.
to refill it to make sure we get more. And Crispy was quick to call me out, like, it sounds like, or no, Nolan called me out and it was like, someone didn't fill up the water purifier, and then Crispy was like, sounds like y'all are living together again. I was like, oh yeah, kind of does.
Yep.
But yeah, I had a lot of fun playing this the other night. I definitely want to play more. Maybe even do a community night would be cool.
Sure.
But I definitely want to keep building that raft that we started. But you know
Mhm.
what this game kind of made me curious about, like,
Hmm.
because it was giving me, because it's kind of a chill experience, right? You're on the boat, you're just hearing the waves. Occasionally there's music, but for the most part it's
Mhm.
just the wind and the water and that kind of thing as you're working away. Like, it kind of made me want to play Sea of Thieves again, to like give that another try and see what that game is like these days.
For
Because when we
sure.
played it, it was still very early access, and but I could see that also being like a really charming, soothing experience
Mhm.
potentially. So I
I
don't
think
know.
the biggest difference in between that and this is the other people that are playing the world are kind of your enemies to an extent.
Yeah,
You can
Sea of
attack other
Thieves is
people.
not so much a survival game, is it? Or would you know?
No, not really. I mean, while there is a kind of survival element, you're not like trying to like, oh, I'm low on hunger, and blah blah blah. You're not trying to do that. It's more
Right.
about going on quests and earning money to buy better outfits.
Right.
I
Pretty
mean
much.
that was kind of one of the downsides of that game was like at the end of the day the loop was a little thin when it comes to the reason you're doing it.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
Well, did they ever
and that's
come
kind
out
of
with the
what
Pirates of the Caribbean expansion?
I think they did.
I don't
I
know.
don't know if I don't know if that part. I know they've talked about it. I don't know if it's actually out yet. Um, but yeah, I would say this if this came highly recommended from a couple people in our community. Chai Tai was really encouraging us to play it. Had a great
Mhm.
time. I definitely want to go back and play more. So maybe look for this some more on the feed in the future. It's been a lot of fun. Hey Bradley, you awake there, buddy?
Yes.
You wanna tell us about?
Yeah, let
I
me
don't know which
rattle
one you want.
off. So let me rattle off my impressions of a couple of quick little weird indie games, right, Nick?
Yes, weird. Tell us.
Uh,
He quoted me. Weird indie games.
One of them is
briefly
not a
though,
weird indie game.
weird little indie games, Nick.
All right,
Yeah, I played a couple of
misspoke.
games, but they are kind of weird and little, I guess, Nick. The first one, I guess, we'll talk about is the puzzle game that I've been playing a little bit of. It's called
I
Patrick's
think
Parabox.
Hmm.
I believe that's what it's called.
Mhm.
Uh,
that's what you put in the doc.
Yep.
I
So
hope that's what it's called. Maybe. This is
nice.
a puzzle game that simple. Looks simple at first. You're moving blocks around. Then you could start going into the box
This
to
makes me think
to
of
kind of go deeper. Hold on. Let me set this up.
okay.
And then you start going into the box. So you're moving. You're doing box puzzles. You're pushing boxes around, right? And then you can start going into those boxes, and that's like a whole other world inside that box. And then what happens? And this is sort of like the key, like hook, the twist of this game is that the boxes that you start pushing around that you can go into are also the same as the box you're currently in, right? It's one where you just kind of have to see it, I suppose. I'm gonna get to so this footage is like early on, just because I wanted to do some puzzles where I knew how to solve them, because I didn't want this footage to be just me staring at the screen, Baba is you style. But
Yeah.
you're gonna learn very quickly that yeah, the boxes become the world that you're already in, to where if you like push something into the box, a larger version of it just came into the room that you were just in, because it is what the room that you just have to watch a trailer or the footage of this game in a couple
He's
minutes
trying
here.
so hard to explain it. I'm like, I don't know.
It
I don't know.
well, once you see what's happening, you get it immediately.
It's like I'm
Um,
watching you push boxes around, and I'm like, every time I think I know what you're doing, you do something else, and then I'm like, I don't think I understand the goal of the puzzle. What are
yeah,
you trying
the
to
other thing
accomplish?
is I kind of got to move quickly because I want to get to some of the weirder stuff. But go ahead, Noel. What was the thing you were going to say? This.
No, I was just gonna say that the game kind of reminds me of it was when I played a Steam demo of within the last year, Jelly is Sticky. It
Oh
kind of
yeah.
reminds me of that.
Might be a
Obviously, it's a little
similar
bit
idea.
different. The whole
Here
concept
we
of
go.
that one is oh, that's interesting. Uh, oh.
Oh my
Okay.
God!
Right,
What
yeah,
the
I
shit?
can see how it's different now that I'm seeing more footage. But originally, I was saying that it seemed like that because it's the whole concept of you kind of manipulating the world you're in versus in Jelly is sticky. The whole point is you're sticking to other blocks in the world and now having to move
Jesus.
them versus this is you're kind of going into like blocks and stuff. So I can see the similar concept, but I can see why this one
Holy
has a
crap!
draw to it.
I just
It's
watched you
pretty
do that
crazy.
puzzle and it clicked.
Yeah.
I will say that that it can get kind of confusing watching because there's a rewind function. So sometimes you see me rewinding and it makes it kind of hard the footage to hard to follow. But I will say if you watch like a trailer, obviously it's edited and presented in such a way to where you kind of understand the mindfucky stuff. I highly recommend checking out a trailer. The first time I saw
Maybe
a
I'll
trailer,
post
I
the
was
trailer
like,
in the show notes
yeah, first time I saw a
because
trailer, I was like, this is a game I need to try because this is crazy.
is this the one you're playing on your Steam Deck or is
On my Steam Deck, yeah. But my only concern here is that, and this is sort of kind of the issue with puzzle games that are really kind of like, blow your mind puzzle games. It
Mhm.
it's that the people who make these to be able to make a really good and I guess frankly innovative puzzle game, you have to have like a weird like genius fucking brain, right? That's just how it
Mhm.
is. But sometimes they make these games and then they get too hard too quickly. And I'm worried that like kind of Baba Is You style, which is a brilliant fucking puzzle game, I'm gonna get to a point where it's like it's gonna get so hard to where I'm just sort of like staring at it for a long period of time, trying to
Mhm.
like figure out how all the pieces are gonna work and what my plan's gonna be. And I find myself like not having the time to really use or like enough like I'm thinking about too many other things that I can't like give the game as much time and mental focus as it needs to be able to get really hard. And I feel like the best, I'm not saying this game is going to get there, although it has gotten hard. um I, I was originally going to record footage of closer to where I am, and even then I was redoing puzzles I've already done, and even then I was getting stuck. So I feel like the best puzzle games are made by these people with these genius minds, but like those puzzle designers are self-aware enough to where they need to design these puzzles for people who don't quite think like them. Does that make sense? Like you have to
Yeah.
kind of take a step back and realize that you're making these games for like smooth brain people. And you still need to get harder, right?
uh
But to have like a really satisfying like I think of The Witness. The Witness is hard and it gets crazy, but like
it has a
he
really nice ramp. It ramps up at a
it
really
has
nice
a
pace.
really nice ramp and it never gets so stupid impossible to where like I bet he could make or any puzzle designer could make puzzles that are like way harder, but that's not necessarily fun for most people who aren't puzzle creators. So I don't know where this game is going to shake out, but I'm getting a little scared that it might be kind of like Baba Is You, which is a brilliant, one of the most brilliant puzzle games I've ever played. But like, is the game where I just had to stare at it for, you know, like countless like minutes without doing anything, going, what the
Yeah.
fuck am I gonna do here?
I'm
I
really
ended up
liking this.
I ended
It
up
looks
putting down Baba Is You for that fact that I would say like 40 to 50% of the time I was playing that game was just me staring at it trying to figure out what the fuck's
Yeah,
going on. Not so much at least I felt like with something like The Witness as I was playing it, I felt like I was kind of always to an extent making progress. And if I got stuck somewhere, I could leave that, go somewhere else, do something else, and then come back. Whereas Baba Is You is not really like that. It's like, open up, you got to do this
yeah,
puzzle, bud. Like, figure it
yeah.
out.
Well, Baba Is You somewhat non-linear. I guess this is a little bit too. There's
Yeah.
a lot of optional rooms and stuff,
Hmm.
but you're right. It is, you do get to a point where it's just like it's almost kind of mentally exhausting.
Oh yeah, for
And
sure.
but
I mean, I feel pretty exhausted just watching you do these puzzles on the screen here because I'm like trying to like wrap my head around it as I'm. But like you said, when you're sometimes I can't tell when you're rewinding, so it's just
yeah, it makes it confusing. Again, just watch a trailer. I don't want to talk too much more about it because I honestly haven't played so much, but it's unique enough that I want to make sure I didn't forget to bring it up before,
Yeah.
because there's some other higher profile indies that are coming out right now, and I didn't want to forget about it. Which is
If
very similar to this other game that I'm going to talk about now, called Gotta Protector's Cart of Darkness, which
I read that
is
and I was like, what the shit?
believe it or not, it's a new indie game for the Switch, a newly
this looks like the same.
localized game.
This looks similar
Th-
in art style to Astalon. Is that
Astalon.
it,
Well, I mean, it
the
is
characters do?
evoking like an 8-bit art style. I think once you get into the gameplay, you'll see. But so this is actually a series, and this game is for Switch. Came out in Japan a couple of years ago. It's finally localized, but this is the third game in a series of which I actually played all these games. The first one came out on Xbox Live Indie Games, believe it or not. Like not Xbox Live
Jesus.
Arcade, Xbox Live Indie Games. It was called like Protect Me Night, I think.
Hmm.
And then they made a sequel on the 3DS called God of Protectors, and this is the third game, God of Protectors: Cart of Darkness, and it's made by a small Japanese studio called Ancient, which is actually Yuzo Koshiro's studio that makes a few games here and there. But I mean, Yuzo Koshiro is a famous Japanese composer, who did like the Ys games, ActRaiser, Streets of Rage, that sort of, like Shinobi, that sort of thing, right? And he still composes music, and he has this little studio that makes this series, and it's a I don't know how to describe it. It's kind of like tower defense meets um almost like 8-bit Dynasty Warriors or 8-bit like Earth Defense Force. It's kind of all about waves and waves and just mowing down waves and waves of enemies, but like 8-bit style, right? And the twist on this version of God of Protectors is that you're in the first two games, you're setting up defenses to protect, the princess. You're setting up fortifications, and you're just kind of wailing on enemies as they start to like spawn in on the map. And you'll see here in a second that like it gets crazy. Like there starts to be like dozens and dozens of them. But in this one, kind of like Overwatch or something, they're on a cart that's moving through the map, and you're trying to get to the other side of the map, and she starts slamming her cart,
Is that the cart of
her train
darkness?
into the cart of darkness, I guess. She starts slamming her train into the enemy's castle, and once she does that, you finish the stage. But then there's all kinds of like points where the cart will stop and like switches, and this is a pretty like straightforward level, albeit very busy. That is
I
the
must
type
say
of game that it
it's
is.
chaotic.
It's chaotic. Again, it's like Earth Defense Force or like Dynasty Warriors. And it's like in sort of like the mentality of which you're playing it, where it's not like the deepest game. There are a bunch of like job classes and abilities you can unlock for them, but it's really just kind of that satisfaction of mowing down a lot of dudes with your different abilities and stuff. It's kind of a mindless game, but really the reason I appreciate this series is because it's a very nostalgic throwback, to like a visual look and sound of like very old games. And I really like Yuzo Koshiro's music, and this is just sort of, it's almost like a delivery, this series is a delivery device for like his music, that's evoking a certain era. And I
Yeah.
really like the tunes in this game, and just kind of wailing on things while listening to good Yuzo Koshiro tracks. And there's actually DLC for this game, this little tiny indie game that I actually bought a couple packs, because he took the soundtrack of this game, and he actually like went use like the chipsets of different old systems, like the Super Famicom and the Mega Drive, the Genesis, right? And did the whole soundtrack in a bunch of different, even some like really obscure systems, to where if you want this game to sound just like a Genesis game, like there's a version of that soundtrack that you can
Nice.
play in the game. And it's just really cool. I mean, that's just the kind of thing, if you have a lot of nostalgia for that
It's
era,
made with a
you know,
reverence for
absolutely. I mean,
yeah.
that's kind of the whole point of his studio Ancient, I feel like, is this reverence for like games of this era and his music, which was, at its peak. I mean, he's most known for music from that era, even though he still composes on more modern games. Like he does the soundtracks for the Etrian Odyssey series, which has great fucking tunes. And he's kind of one of those older like Japanese composers that can pretty much make a career off just contributing to like soundtracks of a bunch of different games, because like people have that much reverence for like his talents. Like Streets of Rage 4, he didn't compose it, but they, he's known for the soundtracks of Streets of Rage, but they got him to do enough tracks that people are like, oh shit, Yuzo Koshiro contributed music to the Streets of Rage.
Light involvement in that soundtrack elevated the rest of it.
Exactly. So
Okay.
it's not like the deepest game, but it is a fun little game that I find like surprisingly satisfying when I kind of want to turn my brain off and just enjoy a little bit of nostalgia. I just want to bring it up here because this is the kind of like I spoke about this game about as much as I spoke about the last two games, and then never again. And you can't even. I mean, I don't even think you can find professional reviews of this game, even though it's like a Switch game. I mean, if there's out there, there's probably only like one or two. That's
should
how
write one, Brad.
unnoticed these games go, and it's kind of sad because there's actually a lot. There's a lot of like like maybe a Dynasty Warriors game. There's a lot of content to unlock and stuff. So a lot of shit you can grind out by playing this game, and I'm enjoying it. It's called Gotta Protectors Cart of Darkness. I don't know, maybe it's like $15 or something on the Switch, but it is a nice little Switch game. When I kind of want to take a break from Triangle Strategy's long story sequences, like
I'm going with
this
Triangle
is
Strategy.
this is the thing that I will boot up. Although I will say I am very close to the end of Triangle Strategy, and I'm enjoying that game immensely. But
Cool.
I'll talk about that more on the podcast once I actually finish that game. So, yeah.
Sweet. Cool. Well, I think that brings us to the end of impressions. We're going over an hour here, so we should probably take a break. When we come back, we got a little bit of news to talk about. We'll answer a couple questions from our listeners, and then we'll wrap up with the 4-player minute. So, if you're watching us live or listening at home, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the show, everybody. Where do we go from here? It hasn't been a ton of news, I suppose, big news. You know what? We don't really have to have a discussion about it, but I'm going to mention it here before we roll into questions, just because I don't want to dedicate my 4-player minute to this, but I did want to make sure we talked about it or mentioned it. But Amy Hennig is working on a Star Wars game again, and the only reason that's a big deal is because she was working on maybe the last. Well, before Jedi Fallen Order, I guess that was the last high-profile Star Wars game that I think people were actively anticipating or looking forward to. She was making like a single-player standalone. I guess the game that she was originally working on before it was canceled was being compared a lot to like Uncharted, but set in the Star Wars universe. I think a lot of people drew comparisons to Star Wars 1313, which was
supposedly
also
called Project
tragically canceled.
Ragtag or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, that was the code name for it, if I recall. But it was tragically canceled. Amy Hennig obviously has involvement. She was one of the original writers for Uncharted 1, 2, and maybe 3. Did she stay all the way through 3? I don't remember. But she was one of the big names that people often associated with the success of the early Uncharted games. So people were obviously very excited when she said she was working on a Star Wars project, and then that was canceled. Well, she's now working on another one. And Star
Can't
Wars
get away from
video. You can't get away from it, but at the same time, I don't think people really wanted her. I think a lot of people really, really wanted that.
I think that was one of the biggest like hypes about that for people that are kind of in the industry. There, it's like, oh, a new Star Wars game. Everyone's usually a little bit tentative about that, but it's like, oh, new Star Wars game that Amy Hennig is like heading up. You're like, oh, okay.
And there was we saw like the briefest snippet of that game at one point with someone. It was on someone on Tatooine walking out of like a bar and looking up into the sky, and there was like a Star Destroyer in the sky. Like, and that once like people like fucking lost their minds over that one shot. So people were really bummed when that was canceled. But now we live in an age where Star Wars as a video game property is starting to become viable again. There was a long period of time where Star Wars was not getting, they weren't finding a lot of really great projects, I suppose, and there was a long period of time where we weren't even getting a lot of Star Wars games, period. But aside from the MMO and the Battlefront games, I guess. And now we have Jedi Fallen Order. We have like 3 or 4 other projects in the works. We have a KOTOR remake in the work from Aspire. So there's a lot of excitement and reinvigoration around Star Wars as a video game property. So that in and of itself is exciting. I just wanted to make sure we mentioned it here. Crispy is in chat. He's asking what studio is doing this. This is, if I remember correctly, this is her studio or a new studio that was started, and she's part of this team. Does anybody happen to know the name of that studio?
I thought it was Skydance.
Yeah, Skydance.
Skydance. Yeah. Well, actually, so Skydance. I thought Skydance was a publisher. I think Skydance is publishing this game, but
technically called Skydance New Media.
Okay. So yeah, she is working at Skydance New Media. I'm not sure if she's like the head of the studio or just one of the major names that's attached to it as like a writer or producer or whatnot, but she has heavy involvement in this game, and so people are excited. And this is one of those situations where Star Wars is now kind of reinvigorated, so the likelihood of this seeing the light of day is actually pretty good at this point, I think. So reason to be excited there.
Yeah, no,
That's
I mean it's and some details have been starting to leak out after this announcement about what Project Ragtag was, and it kind of sounds interesting.
I mean, yeah, I mean it's of course it sounded interesting. That's why people were. I mean, we know more about it now than we did back then, but yeah.
Yeah, like evidently the game started out on Tatooine, and you played a Han Solo like scoundrel, but he had it with like a blaster focus, but he also had like a lightsaber bayonet thing for melee combat. Mm-hmm. Sounded kind of interesting.
You know, I still can't believe that one of my E3 experiences was going to a demo of Star Wars 1313, but that game looked really exciting back then, and I think a lot of people were kind of expecting Amy Hennig's game to be that or the closest thing to that. So
you know what? Star Wars, Schmar Wars. The real news is Amy Hennig was the director of Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver, and that game is sweet. She's doing something new. You know, fuck Uncharted. Maybe it'll be like Soul Reaver.
Maybe it will. Maybe
the Soul Reaver was like a lightsaber, basically.
You know, I mean, Uncharted is great, but like, I don't necessarily think Uncharted is the most. It wouldn't be necessarily the most surprising or innovative approach to Star Wars. I would love to play a Uncharted-like Star Wars game, but it would be cool to see something new. So you know, maybe maybe you're right. Soul Reaver. Let's model it after Soul Reaver. Maybe that'll be really cool. Who knows? But yeah, I just wanted to make sure we mentioned that because it was kind of in this. That news was announced early last week. I think we didn't do a show last week, and it was kind of around the same time where we were all kind of talking about the Max Payne remakes and there's just a bunch of like kind of like rapid fire news. But I think that Amy Hennig thing came out like the day after we recorded our last podcast, so we didn't really get a chance to mention it, and I wanted to make sure we did. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm excited about it. But with that said, I want to jump to questions tonight. We have 4 or 5 to answer. I want to remind everybody, if you're listening at home and you have a question that you want to ask us, whether it's a silly hypothetical or a news topic that you want to hear our thoughts on, whatever it may be, you can either go to Discord at discord.gg/4player, go to the submit a questions thread, and I set up, usually about a week before the episode, I set up a dedicated thread up for that episode. So go in there, leave the question. You can also email us at questions@4playernetwork.com. Seems like most people are preferring to use the Discord, but it's still open to you if you want to go that route. Are y'all ready?
Fire away.
Our first question comes from Zanny665, first time questioner, I believe. I'm partially involved in this question. He says, "Has anyone tried to make Nick play any of the Yakuza games? I know a lot of the group are fans of them. Oops.
I know
So
better.
I was wondering if there was a reason Nick hasn't given them a go. Maybe it would be a good game for the Revival Club." Brad's shaking his head violently. What? I thought you
Not
wanted me
every
to play
game
the
is for
Yakuza
every
game.
person. You know,
But like,
Nick
you're
knows,
right.
and we all know.
But there
I
hasn't.
would say that Nick's not gonna. I think Nick would be similar to me in that his preference for the Yakuza games would probably lean more towards, 7, like a Dragon, more RPG style.
Yeah.
Um, I think those ones, there's less mental capacity used on determining fighting styles and remembering move sets, and trying to make sure combat goes as well as it could. Um, so I think the more modern ones are even still better than the OG ones in that regard.
Yeah, yeah.
I think starting with Zero and onward, I think those ones would be in Nick's wheelhouse. I don't think the older ones as much.
No, no. I'm pretty sure at this point I've already decided. I think at this point it's really just an inevitability. I'll eventually get to it. And to answer your question, no, there isn't any specific reason why I haven't tried it, other than maybe. And this is not a knock. I mean, we've talked a lot about Yakuza on this podcast, like a
Yes.
lot.
See, but the question is more for us though. It's why aren't we pushing it on you
Well, you
when he
have. I
knows
mean, you've
that
done everything you
we
can to
are,
push it
especially
on
me,
me.
are big fans.
You've
I think
done
it's
your part selling this game to me.
I think it's one
No,
of those
I've
things
never
where
tried to sell Yakuza to you specifically.
By talking about it on this podcast, you are selling it to me.
Fair enough.
I think
that's
it's one of
fine,
those
that's
things
fine.
that we know each other fairly well enough. There are certain games I'm never going to try to get Nick into the Binding of Isaac.
Yeah.
That's not his bag. I don't
I'm
think he
gonna
would
play that
enjoy
on
that.
Steam Deck.
If you
Hell
want
no.
to try it out, Nick, I think you're more than welcome to. I just don't think you're going to get out of it what I get out of it. So that's why, like, I know Nick is not going to be into that style of game, so there's no reason for me to pitch it to him.
But I do know,
I
I do
think
know there's games like I think of like SteamWorld Dig, which I started playing primarily because I heard Nolan talk about it so often. Even though I know that's not typically the kind of game I'm really into, I tried it, enjoyed it quite a bit, and I feel like that's kind of the situation I will have with the Yakuza when I eventually get around to playing it.
Still don't think they're for you, but hey, don't feel bad because there's no shortage of games that I would recommend to you. You know,
Like what, Chicory?
there's plenty. Well, Nick, shut up. But you said SteamWorld Dig. Have you ever played SteamWorld Heist? That game's fucking awesome.
No,
that's
I
a good
haven't.
game.
I haven't.
That game's
That's
fucking
a good
awesome.
game.
I bet you'd like that.
I have no doubt. I love SteamWorld Dig too. So yeah, I might go back and play that. But I do think even if I don't end up getting into Yakuza and like loving it and making it being like one of my all-time favorite series, you know, I think it's an inevitability that I will eventually one day try Yakuza 0. And that'll be kind of the sticking point. I'll either get into it and I'll love it and it'll just be history from there. It'll just, the rest is history. But
To you,
or
Nick,
it
to
won't
you,
happen.
for you, I might, if you absolutely had to play one of these games, I might actually recommend Judgment.
Judgment. Yeah.
It's got a good English dub, and it's
I will
more
say
like
the one thing is
like
it's still
crime
you still have to do
detective.
the brawler aspect is still
Yeah,
there.
you do.
I mean, like,
But
I've played plenty. I've played Brawlers
Yeah, he could
before,
do
and
that.
I'm not saying you can't. I'm just saying, speaking at least even from myself, that is my least enjoyable part of those games.
sure.
Yeah.
And I would also think
can see
that
that.
Judgment and Lost Judgment make better use of the maps because you're doing a lot of sneaking, doing a lot of character observation, things like that.
Sure,
Maybe
but it's
Judgment is
very
my entry
story
point
heavy.
then.
It's very story heavy, and the main stories of these games are, they're quite serious. I mean, they could be melodramatic, of course, but I mean, again, I'm not really recommending it to you. But if you were to pick one, maybe Judgment.
Do you? Here's a question. Do you think if I started
Crime
with a
mystery.
judgment, it would satisfy Zanny here, who wants me to like?
Yeah, I
It's
mean
not
for
technically
sure.
a Yakuza game,
Because
but like,
if you end up liking Judgment, you'd probably like the other Yakuza games. If you don't like
Mhm.
Judgment, they're probably not for you. You
I
know.
like this approach. Maybe Judgment would be a better entry point than Yakuza 0. We'll see.
Definitely
So
it's definitely got enough story for you, so you want to throw it in
Nairoshi in
there.
chat says, "I think Nick would love the cutscenes in Yakuza, but maybe not much else." Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Our next question tonight comes from Tack. Tack says, "Welcome back to Gamer Hell. There have been some new facilities added since your last stay. In this room, you'll be strapped to a chair and forced to watch mediocre long plays of a single game for the remainder of your game-damned existence. What game are you forced to watch?"
Is this like best case scenario
Yes, my question is he asking what game we would want? Or is it
or
it's
the worst
hell
case
or the
scenario?
worst case scenario? Maybe we should
That'd be an
Ooh, I
interesting
know.
scenario, I think.
Worst case scenario would be like someone playing a puzzle game where you already know all like the solutions,
Yes.
but
Oh
but
no.
they're like terrible at it.
Well,
You know, I
I was
almost
gonna
feel like
say like that's a bad one, but it's almost like any scenario like that where it's watching someone not good at games play games is one of the most frustrating things. Is like when you know what's supposed to happen, when you know how it should be done, when you like watching someone struggle to make a jump in a platformer, like anything like that.
that's a good one.
Having to just constantly watch someone failing at games would be miserable.
Uh to extend the question, he does confirm he wants us to answer what would be the worst for us. And as an extension, maybe like while we're watching these long plays, we can't say anything. So like to add on to like Nolan's like watching someone who sucks, who is really struggling with the game, but not being able to reach out and like provide tips or try and help
Just
in any
just
way.
imagine someone constantly playing Mario 64 and having to constantly hear the Mario falling and dying sound just over and
Oh
over and over
no!
because they keep failing.
The
Imagine
sunshine
someone
sound
playing.
effect.
Imagine someone playing like some relatively like maybe like B tier like 360 shooter and they don't have a webcam and their mic is never loud enough and that would be pretty awful.
I'm playing a
Maybe
mediocre.
like The Darkness or something.
Wow. Wow.
Damn, throwing
And they
shade at
just
a
play
current Revival Club game,
those
huh?
same 360 games over and over and over again.
Really only like those 3 or 4 360 games.
Yeah,
Oh man.
that'd be pretty torturous.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of specifically what game would be. I'm like being forced to sit down and watch our first watch myself like us play Condemned 2 like from back in the day with the camera pointed at the screen.
That'd probably be dope. I wish we had a full playthrough of that.
Oh man, the audio was so bad.
Like
Yeah,
Um,
but there was charm to that.
yeah, I guess that's true. I'm trying to think of specifically what game I would hate to like watch
I don't have a
someone
specific
struggle with.
game, but for me it would have to be like a mediocre RPG that's very text heavy and the person playing it is a very slow reader and plays very poorly, so they're constantly game overing and going
Watching a
back and having to
text-based
play through
mud, watching
everything over
chaos
and over again.
Watching someone who a slow reader play Chaos, what is it, Chaos Blade, Brad?
Chaos Mud.
Is that what,
Yeah. Or like maybe like a strategy game and they're just making all the wrong decisions.
if
Oh
I had to watch
god.
myself play watch myself, like another version of myself playing Warcraft 3 back in the day, but like not being like I'd be just so frustrated because I was terrible at that game. But like watching myself play it and not being able to like it's just the self-loathing would be just so intense. Watching myself try to play those games.
Watching Nick play Chicory and not even bother like coloring in the world.
Is that why you don't? Is that why you don't want me to play it because you think that's
No,
the kind of
no.
player I would be?
Nick, like there's no way you're not gonna like Chicory. You're just gonna be like, you know,
Would that be a
like
good Steam Deck
what
game?
Ed said on the Game of the Year podcast is probably what you would say. You know, it would be a
Remind
number
me,
11 game for you, and you'd be like,
Oh,
yeah, yeah. Look, I don't think you dislike chicory. I don't. I don't think anyone would really dislike it, because it's charming enough and it's delightful enough. But I I was never telling you never to play Chicory. You sort of like are taking it to your grave for some reason. Like it's now, almost May of 2022. You have you have now had plenty of time to play fucking Chicory, but for some reason you're like, well, Brad told me to get Pokemon, so obviously I can never play Chicory ever again.
I will never forgive you for that.
But that guy didn't tell you not to play it. I just said get Pokemon.
At this point, I'm just doing it for the lulz. All right. Our next question tonight comes from Mr. Scorpion. He says, what can be a saving grace for you in a bad game? Something that would make you think of the game fondly and keep playing when everyone else is ready to essentially burn it.
Really good music, maybe?
So you would play a game
music can be good.
Music even if you were hating like the mechanical experience.
So hold on. So I would actually say no to that potentially because that's one of the reasons I stopped playing Dust Force, but that's still to this day one of my favorite soundtracks. But I could not get into that game.
I mean, I get it. I love listening to gaming music, so I could totally see how that might change an experience and become a saving grace. For me, it's if a game has like we talk about atmosphere a lot, or I talk about atmosphere a lot, and I know that's kind of a general term, but if a game has just a very good sense of place and it's a vibe that I'm into, even if mechanically speaking I can't stand it, I could push through it. Strangely enough, this feels kind of specific to the Darkness, specifically the first Darkness, which I just finished playing for the Revival Club, and I'll talk about it on the podcast when we record that. But that game has no run button, and it's open, so you have to walk everywhere, and that is the most infuriating feeling. Like you can't go anywhere in that game quickly. And not to mention, like the streets are strangely like devoid, like empty, and but at the same time, it's got this really unique Starbreeze atmosphere that it has a mood, it has a vibe that's very specific to it that I really enjoy. So that's the kind of thing that kept me going through that game. And it's probably what kept me going through it when I played it back in the day, back in 2007 or 8, whenever that game first came out. Because mechanically speaking, even without even taking the run button out of the equation, it's also a game that is incredibly janky. I can't even believe some of the decisions they made as far as like how that game controls. But that atmosphere, man, it pulls me through.
Yeah, I can power through a bad playing game if the story has just grabbed me, and I'm so invested in that. I'm willing to tolerate bad mechanics or lots of bad music or bad visuals just to get that story.
That's what I'm trying to think. But I'm also trying to think of a game that I played that I would also say that I didn't like, but I loved the story. Because typically speaking, if I love a story, I mean, kind of
like I'll give you 2 examples of my scenario. And one of them I ultimately put down because I got so fucking frustrated, but I was willing to commit to it as far as it did. Was a 360 game, and don't laugh. It's called Velvet Assassin.
Oh, I know what game you're talking about.
Yeah, it was
100 copies of that at GameStop when I worked there on the.
It was a bad game with a really interesting idea behind it. And I really liked the idea of what they were trying to tell you. I only stopped when I just got to a roadblock and I could not progress. The
idea like lady wearing skimpy clothes or
no? It's a game about a female assassin in World War II. It's actually based on a real person. and the entire game is her playing through she's on her deathbed in a hospital and she's slowly dying, and she's playing through the events of her life and these missions to take out these Nazi leaders.
You know what? I'm going to be honest. I never knew anything about that game, and that is way more. I'm going to use the word interesting because I can't think of a better word. It's way more interesting than I ever would have guessed from a game called Velvet Assassin. So,
yeah. I mean, it had good ideas to it. It just, the gameplay in times was just so fucking broken. Because it's a stealth game, all right? So you're sneaking through a lot of areas. The problem is that when you're sneaking through areas, there were times in which all of the enemy characters' faces are always looking in your direction, no matter where you are, whether or not they know where you are in the actual map.
That sounds broken.
Yeah, it was broken as fuck.
So what's the other game? So there were two.
I mean, the other one you're going to give me shit for, but I think it's a really intriguing story, but mechanically it's not a good experience. Get Even.
Okay. Well, I was excited to play Get Even.
You were never going to play
Get Even. Dude, on my Steam Deck, I was going to play that on my Steam Deck. It's one of my games.
I thought real hard about it.
I installed Chernobylite, but I was gonna go play that one first because I've already started it. Brad, you look like you have some joke to say. What's going on?
I would say, although I didn't finish it, I played way more of it than I expected, and I think it's solely because I just loved the way it looked, and that was Ghosts of Tsushima. I was so in love with the wind and the nature and the rolling hills and stuff that was visually it was propelling me through that game, even though I didn't care about the story at all and I didn't find the gameplay all that
story
deep or exciting. That's great, but it's not, this was my example, Nick.
Hurts my soul.
That does hurt, kind of, yeah.
But whatever. That's fair enough. Yeah, I don't know. Nolan, do you have an answer for this one, or should we move on?
So my only answer I can think of is kind of similar to Brad's, and it was the last Assassin's Creed game I played, which was
Odyssey?
Origins. I barely played Odyssey, but even what I did play of Odyssey, similar to Origins, kind of similar to what Brad was saying about Ghost of Tsushima, is I couldn't get drawn into the story at all. And I would just go to a cutscene and I would just mash A and she'd be like, okay.
I thought you were going the opposite direction with this. I thought you were going to say that you couldn't get into the gameplay, but the story's what pulled you in.
No, it's just one of those. I like exploring the worlds. It's something. Don't get me wrong. Ultimately, the reasons I put those games down wasn't the story. It was that there was just too much crap. But I like the whole concept of I need to farm, 4 deer and 3 alligators so I can make a bigger pouch so I can carry more stuff, so I can do this, so I can do that, and blah, blah, blah. Those things, hooks, get me to an extent. It's just those games had way too much. But that's just something I do remember playing those and enjoying them at first, but then just being I just could not care about the story.
I love the story in Origins. Again, that's your example, not mine. I'm just, speaking to my soul. Also, one last thing I will say: reverence for a series can also pull me through a bad game. That is why I have played all the way through Onimusha 4. That's why I've played all the way through Dino Crisis 3.
I did it with Tales of Arise. Because people ask me, all you're doing is bitching, yet you played 100 hours of this game. And I'm like, dude, I'm not going to... I was excited about this game. I like Tales games. I want to see this through.
But you know what's funny? There's clearly a limit for me when it comes to that, because I've tried twice to play all the way through Resident Evil 6. And I played through one of the campaigns twice.
Ugh.
And could not bring myself to play through the other 2.
Leon's?
3? I played through Leon's twice. I could not stomach the thought of playing more of that game especially 2 more campaigns
Well,
with
no,
2 other characters.
3 more campaigns because there's
3
4
more
campaigns
from other characters that I found far less interesting. So, man, I don't know. All right, our last question tonight comes from the Drunken Merchant. He says, in the Discord, I streamed a fan edit of Star Wars Empire Strikes Back entitled Pulp Empire that embodies a Tarantino-esque style with music from Pulp Fiction. Have you guys ever indulged in fan edits of movies / TV shows? Others I've seen include Evil Dead 4, which is the TV show edited down, and a 2.5-hour cut of the entire Star Wars sequel trilogy all in one movie, and it's way better.
Are there many of these? I don't think
I-
I've ever.
I don't know if there's a lot. Well, actually, there's probably more than we know of.
I mean,
there's probably a whole community built around that thing, right?
the only thing I can think
Yes.
of for me is Dragon Ball Z Abridged.
But
that's
that's
not a fan edit.
official,
That's an
right?
official thing.
No, DBZA is a fan project.
A bridge, not Kai.
Correct, Abridged, not
Correct.
Kai.
Oh,
the one
I was
done
thinking
by
of
Team
Kai.
4-Star.
Kai is essentially abridged but done officially, right?
Well,
Like by the actual
yeah.
studios.
Kind of.
Yeah, it is not.
kinda.
Kai is an abridged version of the original one, but it is not DBZ abridged. They are very
Right,
different
right.
concepts.
I mean,
But yes,
I'm confused.
Anyway.
Okay,
I thought they were the
Abridged
same
is a
concept, but
fan
one's about
comedy
fans and one's-
reinterpretation of Dragon Ball Z.
yeah, abridged is literally comedy. It is making fun of it. It is jokes. It is like
Oh, I had no idea. I
Yes.
thought those were just
very different.
That was hilarious.
Oh shit! God damn, I had no idea. Okay, interesting. I have heard this thing about the Star Wars movies being edited down to a single film many times, and everyone always says the same thing, which is that it's the best way to watch that movie. But I struggle. I personally kind of struggle to like get interested in unofficial things like that. Not for any particular reason. But I mean, first of all, it takes some effort to seek those things out, to parse through what's good and what's bad. I don't know. I mean, I'm certainly interested in the fact that something that like that exists, but I don't think I would ever sit down and watch the entire thing.
I do it with games. Mods, total conversions. Like fan rebalancings of games, like Final Fantasy Tactics and Tactics Ogre, but like
Right.
stuff like that.
So it sounds like
Shows.
the short answer to your question, Merchant, is no. I don't think many of us here really doubt. When it comes to TV and movies, I don't think really any of us go hard on that kind of thing. So.
Sometimes maybe the closest thing I've done is like when a fan suggests or like suggests like a certain show order or like hit these episodes, instead of watching like the entire first season, that sort of thing. But like, yeah, nothing beyond that, I don't think.
Okay. Interesting. All right. That is it for questions tonight, guys. Thank you so much. Again, if you are interested in asking us a question for a future show, be sure to submit that in the Discord channel called Submit a Question. It's at discord.gg/4player. Again, if you're new, if you're listening to this, you're not a part of our Discord, please do so. It's free, and it's the best way to stay involved with our community, keep in touch with us between shows, all that good stuff. Again, that's discord.gg/4player. If you're new, make sure you stop in the introductions channel and say hello, introduce yourself. We'd love to hear from you. And with that, let's go ahead and wrap up the show with the 4-player minute. Brad's going to start us off here in a second. I want to quickly mention next week, podcast next week. I think we're doing it on Wednesday. Is that?
Wednesday.
Yeah.
Yes.
So for a couple weeks anyways, or maybe a couple's underselling it. Brad,
Maybe over the summer.
Over the summer. This happens every once in a while. We end up switching to a different day for
the next couple of months.
Next couple of months. That sounds okay. We'll just what Chris Davis said. Summer. We'll be recording on Wednesdays.
Yeah.
I will try to remember to update everything on the website where we refer to Thursdays for a while, so we're not misleading anybody. But yeah, starting next week, we'll be recording on Wednesday. But yeah, time to wrap up. Brad, you want to start us off? 4-player minute. Final thoughts. Again, guys, this is still called the 4-player minute. We're just you know.
Okay. My 4-player minute, I
Sweat,
guess,
thank you, fuck you.
will be about sort of the hidden downside to having a
Wait, hold
Steam
on.
Deck now.
Sorry, wait. Sorry. Did I miss someone's question? Hey,
Gonzo Lude.
hold on.
I
I
mean, we
may
can
have
always
missed.
hit it next week.
I don't see a question from Gonzo in here. Yeah, sorry,
Um,
Gonzo. If you submitted a question, it's not in the Discord.
That's
I
okay.
apologize.
Okay. Well, my final thought is about the hidden downside of having a Steam Deck, and that's that I feel like I now have access to like easy access to like so many more games now, but it doesn't actually mean I have more game time to play them. It reminds me a lot of like when you first mod like a PSP or a Vita, and you get all these emulators running. You get like, oh, I got all these PS1 games and Super Nintendo games, and you spend all this time getting it set up, and it's really exciting. And now you have access to like dozens or hundreds of games, and you're like, oh, well, I guess I need to start playing some of these. And you're like, oh, then you get distracted and you start playing Rogue Legacy 2. Like that's kind of what the Steam Deck feels like right now. I spent all this time setting up all this shit and installing all this shit, and I got my remote play and xCloud and everything working, and now it's like I guess I'll play a little bit of this new puzzle game, and that's all I really have time for. So it's weird, right? It just introduced like a whole other thing to think about now when I sit down to play a game, and that's a lot. And now it even affects like purchases, because now it was like, well, if it's on Game Pass, I try it. Otherwise, I'll probably get whatever indie games on Switch. And now I have to think, well, how good does the Switch version work? Because if the Switch version of this indie game works really well, I'd probably still rather get it on the Switch because of the OLED screen and the better battery life. But if it runs better on the deck, maybe I'll get it on the deck. And oh, it's on Game Pass, so maybe should I buy the Steam version? And now it's just a whole other thing
Dude,
for me to think
we're
about and
seeing
stress
like
about. And
this is like the
fuck,
same thing happening with like streaming services. Right when
yeah,
Netflix started, people were like, "Oh my god, Netflix is amazing!" And now we have Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime, all this
yeah,
shit, and it's just like, and now everybody's just like, it's just like they've soured on the whole thing because now it feels like we're right back to having cable, and it's awful. It's kind of the same situation. Although I will say, I feel like the fact that Elden Ring is the constant thing, it's like hovering for me anyways. It's like I feel like I can't really play a, a lot of the things that I want to play because I know Elden Ring is still sitting there waiting to be finished, but I'm getting close.
yeah. I feel
maybe
that.
maybe when Elden
I'm ready
Ring's
to finish
done
it.
it won't feel so you know hopeless.
So yeah, my fuck you goes to a lack of game time. That's all.
There we go. Well, maybe when your kids go to college you'll have time to really enjoy your Steam Deck.
Mm.
Yeah, maybe.
All right, Chris Davis, why don't you go next?
My final thought, I'm splitting it in two. First half is that some free time finally has freed up for me, so I can start playing some video games again. I really haven't had that much time over the past month to really devote to stuff.
Yeah, you're the only person here who's finished Elden Ring.
I mean, yeah, but that was me only playing that particular game for nearly a month, so
A month.
I focused,
Sorry.
And Elden Ring was my reward to myself for finishing a project. So
Fair enough.
So now I've got some time. I'm excited because Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe came out today. Also, Kaiju Wars came out. I've been really looking forward to that. So I picked both those up, and then next week, the physical version of Sifu, which we really haven't talked about at all in this show.
Nobody here has played it yet. It's
Yeah,
on my
well,
list, and it's something I'm going to
I
get to eventually.
refuse.
Yeah. Well, the physical version comes out next week, so I'm going to pick that up, and hopefully I'll have that to talk about next week. So,
Cool.
excited for those. The other half is that I have a personal request for Nolan. I need him to live. I need to live vicariously through him because, much to my excitement and dismay, Activision announced over the past week that they are doing a event in Call of Duty Warzone for Godzilla vs. Kong. This, despite being over a year after that movie came out, they're doing an event where supposedly Godzilla and Kong are gonna fucking duke it out on the map as people are playing. And that's fucking exciting to me, but I refuse to touch Warzone or anything Call of Duty right now. So I would like to respectfully request that he stream some of it so I can watch it. I would really appreciate it.
Dude, I hate to break to you. I don't even know that game installed anymore.
No. Hey, Chris Davis.
It's free.
We live,
just play it, Chris Davis.
Also, we live in a world where you can watch any number of streamers play that. I'm sure it won't be hard to find.
Yeah, but I would rather watch
Nolan.
my good friend Nolan on 4pp.tv play through it.
That would be great in a perfect
Go
world.
watch Pokemon or something. I mean, I'm sure people are playing it.
Who's Pokemon? I don't know who this is.
Fucking gay.
This fucking guy.
Yeah.
All right, Nolan, your turn.
My 4-player final minute thoughts start now. I don't really have a whole lot to say. I mean, similarly, just life has been busy, been doing so many different things that aren't gaming related, mentally exhausted. So by the time it comes to playing games, I don't want to play anything intense. And so that's, the most intense thing I've been playing recently is Supraland, 6 inches under. And I say intense just because that's, mentally, there's still a lot to think about and whatever. But other than that, I just haven't really been playing a whole lot. When I do play games, it's, like some Monster Train, or for a little while I was playing some Fez, just because we had talked about that a few weeks ago. And then in the past week, obviously, I've been playing a bunch of Raft, but mainly because, there's nothing intense about it. I can, have a YouTube video up in the background and I can play the game. And so it's just one of those things where I do want to get back into Elden Ring, but it's just like daunting to get back into that. And yeah, that's it.
I know the feeling.
Yeah.
Okie dokie. All right. My 4-player minute starts now. I too am going to split mine into two. I'm excited. I'm excited about two different worlds right now. One, it's been surprisingly busy. Well, not surprising. I mean, there's been a lot of film news this week. CinemaCon is happening, which I suppose is kind of like E3 for films, for film insiders in the film industry. But more so than any past year, I feel like it's just we're being bombarded with all kinds of really interesting projects and exciting news. They screened Top Gun today. Apparently, people were losing their minds over it, and they showed the first trailer for Mission Impossible 7, which isn't going to be out until Top Gun is in theaters. But I'm very, 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 very excited for that trailer. Avatar even has me a little interested to kind of see what, like, they're obviously putting a lot of their eggs in the Avatar basket, so there's got to be some confidence there. So,
or a lot of hope, but
I mean, like, that is a popular.
He hasn't directed a movie in 13 years.
We've come full circle because we literally opened this show talking about James Cameron and the fact that he hasn't directed a movie in a very, very long time. And that's where this stems from. But they're releasing 4 Avatar movies, and I don't hate the original Avatar movie. I'm kind of astounded that they're going to find a way to stretch it into 5 movies. But they must have a plan, which is more than we can say for Disney and their Star Wars films. So, I'm interested to see what that ultimately becomes. But there's a lot of other projects too. They should, John Wick 4. There's a fucking Ana de Armas is gonna star in the John Wick spinoff called Ballerina, and I am so into that idea.
Wait, who?
Ana de Armas, from Knives Out and No Time to Die, and a bunch of other. Yeah, but she's gonna be the star of a John Wick spinoff, and that sounds.
She was in that
amazing.
other Keanu Reeves movie, Knock or whatever.
Yeah,
it's kind of a shame that Halle Berry's not getting her own John Wick universe film, but okay.
Yeah, but I mean, maybe she will eventually. But this is the first part that's come out. But yeah, there's just a lot of stuff, a lot of exciting film stuff happening this week, and there's probably quite a few that I'm forgetting about here, but it's been fun to kind of think about the next year or two for films. The other side of that coin is I'm really excited for the Steam Deck. Now that I have it in my hands, I take my Switch with me to work every day, but I only maybe end up actually taking it out on my lunch break to play it once a week, maybe. And that's largely has to do with, honestly, with what I've been playing on the Switch and just not being particularly excited about it. But I feel like so many doors have been opened up having the Steam Deck on hand, and I'm so much more excited to spend my lunch hour playing games, because those games are games that have been sitting in my Steam library on my backlog, or even new PC games that are out, like Supraland 6 Inches Under is a 2022 release. I'm really excited to be able to find the time to play that with that. That's not necessarily taking away time from time that I could be spending playing like Elden Ring or Horizon or whatever it may be. But also, like, I've spent over an hour for like a couple nights just sitting on the back patio with my Steam Deck, and just like at night with the breeze and just being outside. I don't know. It's just been a great, wonderful gaming experience. And let me tell you, the speakers on that thing are really good. So I'm just kind of over the moon about the device. I was a little worried that I was going to maybe regret the purchase, but so far I'm very, very pleased with it. It does feel a little weird carrying around what essentially amounts to like a PS5 or you know what I mean? I feel like I had to clutch that thing. I mean, I carry it around in my backpack when I go to work and whatnot, but when I'm walking around holding the case, I'm like, I feel like I'm just carrying like a fucking really expensive briefcase.
You ever walked around with a laptop?
But like this costs more than the last laptop that I bought.
I guess so.
It's crazy. But I don't know. I'm just so far really enjoying the experience. I have like the next 4 or 5 games that I want to play on it lined up. I've been playing The Darkness 2, which is a Revival Club game, and I've been playing that here and there, which is great. Yeah, I don't know. It's been a lot of fun. So looking forward to what the year holds for that device as well. But yeah, that is it, guys. That is our show. I think unless y'all have any final thoughts you want to throw out here.
We just did our final thoughts, Nick.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah,
good point, Brad. Thank you so much for listening. Again, podcast starting next week for the next couple months is going to be on a Wednesday, so 6 days and counting until our next episode. But I think Crispy will be back, and we'll have a lot to talk about next week. He's been playing Overwatch 2. I think he's going to try that Dune game, which I actually also want to try. It's in early access, so
we'll definitely have Stanley Parable to talk about as well.
Stanley Parable, should be a good show. So,
which, hey, maybe don't play Yakuza, but you should definitely play Stanley Parable next.
Yes, you should.
If you like interesting, innovative storytelling in video games.
I do like those things.
Do you like fun writing? That's the game for you.
Well, okay. Well, don't turn them off, Chris Davis.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening. 4playernetwork.com is the website. Of course, join us in Discord at discord.gg/4player. But for now, we're signing off, and I think we may try and squeeze in one of those ranked lists or whatever here before 11 o'clock. So stick around if you're watching us live. If not, we'll see you next week. Good night.
Bye.